National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, has just come out with its preliminary report on that train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. They say a wheel bearing overheated. 2 sensors didn't register a temperature high enough to trigger the alarm, but a third sensor did. The crew immediately tried to slow the train and reported a possible derailment to dispatch. 5 of the cars that went off the tracks were carrying toxic chemicals, including vinyl chloride. And residents there have been complaining of health problems, and almost 45,000 animals around the area have since died. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, has deemed the water in East Palestine safe. So let's separate here fact from fiction, because joining us now is chemistry professor at the University of Chicago, Dr. John Anderson. Dr. Anderson, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate you getting up with us this morning.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So walk us through a little bit here. There's a lot of politics embedded in this. There's a lot of people who are understandably very concerned about their and their family's health. Talk about vinyl chloride. How concerned should any of us be if something like this were to happen in our neighborhood?
Yeah, so vinyl chloride is what we call a monomer, and the thing that it's used for the most is we actually link those monomer units up into a chain that's called a polymer. And the place that you'd see vinyl chloride is in PVC pipe, right? It's used to make PVC pipes, which we see all over the place. With that being said, before it's turned into that plastic material, it is very toxic. It's pretty nasty stuff, and I think people should be concerned about it. It's a known carcinogen that causes liver cancer. It's a gas, so it's going to be pretty easy to breathe in. So I do think that people are right to be concerned about it.
So when we see politicians going there, drinking from the faucet, saying everything is just fine, is that them being deceptive, or is that them being not plugged in properly? How do you grade sort of the officials on the ground whistling through this saying everything's okay?
Historically, I think when you see people drinking water like that, there's a lot of cases where that has turned out to look really bad once they've done later testing. These things are very complicated and difficult. Because vinyl chloride is a gas, that means it evaporates even from water very quickly, within a few days, right? So I would anticipate most of that chemical is gone at this point, but it's very difficult to predict how it will travel through soil or groundwater, how persistent it might be underground where it's not going to evaporate as quickly. And I think really the only thing that will tell is extensive testing. And if I lived there, I would want to get my home tested, my drinking water tested at the source.
And when we talk about that underground element, how long will it take to know the lasting effects and the impacts of those toxins sort of in the long term? What's a time window to look at?
I don't know if these things are very complicated. If I lived there, I would want to test it pretty regularly, maybe on a weekly basis, maybe for months, to make sure that you're not seeing some groundwater aquifer, getting persistent leaching.
Train derailments, and on the news business, we are covering them more and more, it seems. Another Norfolk Southern train derailed just in Michigan a few days ago. NTSB has trains that stop in Chicago. We are a major hub for train traffic in this country. From where you sit, what needs to be done to avoid this from happening more often happening here?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'll say is that a lot of vinyl chloride is transported in this country already, right? And we do it safely most of the time, right? So I think that the precautions that we have in place are good, but clearly it's not enough. I think a lot of effort needs to go into thinking about how we build really resilient containers for these materials so that if we do have an accident, which are bound to happen, that we don't have this release, right? And I think in this particular case, the container ended up building up pressure, and that's why they had to rupture it and actually start this fire on purpose, so that they didn't have a bigger explosion that they had to deal with because the container ended up failing.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here, both politically, environmentally. So many people have so many questions, understandably, there in East Palestine and beyond. Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for being with us. Very much appreciate it.
Yep, of course. Thank you.